Blockchain technologies, the actual sector that promotes and supports cryptocurrencies. This technology can potentially boost numerous industry productivity, security and transparency, reducing costs and enhancing customer experiences. Therefore, countries are investing in developing and in using blockchain technology to address different social and economic areas, just not the United States of America. Who are these countries? Today we're going to talk about 5 countries where blockchain and crypto looks like they're moving to. Even Coinbase is now offering to move offshore out of U.S. regulation. Let's talk about that today in DeFi IoT. Yes, you have heard it here. Coinbase is even considering now going offshore to a crypto-friendly jurisdiction, and then will compete with Binance. Now, Binance is the larger of the crypto platforms that's out there. You have Binance US, but that's been kind of restricted lately due to regulations. They've pulled back. There was an effort to try to envelop Binance into a U.S. lawsuit with the whole FTX collapse, that whole thing, and they were smart enough to pull out of this in time. Now, Coinbase comes out and recently says that, hey, we're considering moving offshore. They're going to open up an offshore office. Now, I'm sure they're going to have something here in the U.S. as well, because there will be somebody in the U.S. that's going to want to do things as far as moving things in crypto or blockchain technology. But the attitude right now with this administration, because crypto and blockchain are a direct competition. Now, I'm talking about decentralized blockchain. Do not confuse, please, blockchain. It's the same blockchain, but the governments like California and right now the Federal Reserve's FedNow payment platform apparently is not going to be blockchain, but there is talk on a blockchain company helping support that technology. So this is a move that's going to come gradual over time to introduce to central bank digital currency. Obviously, American people aren't just going to say, okay, here's my paper, I want to go back to now full government control type of a monetary system, which is completely unconstitutional, right? That's a whole different video. What I want to get today is the U.S. is going to push out and lose the opportunity for going forward. Web 3.0, this whole metaverse idea, that's coming. Look, like Zuckerberg or don't like Zuckerberg, the guy is really savvy in technology. He bet his whole fortune on the metaverse functioning. Now remember, he's not the metaverse, just a piece of it. And everybody's vying for that piece, right? McDonald's is buying their patents and so forth to put in the metaverse, and they'll sell, you'll shop, you'll go through a whole avatar experience. Another video. You can subscribe below, hit the thumbs up, so get out in the algorithm, please. Gonna build our channel back up again and get this news out to you. Remember, what we do is we cover anything that has to do with finances, economics, government, etc., politics, etc., that will support or goes against a free market economy. And we support cryptocurrencies, especially those that are decentralized, because they sustain that free market economy where you and I have the chance to grow ourselves and not be told by some government official, or actually non-government official, if you will, on the global aspect that's trying to roll out all these draconian laws. We won't be told by them what we can and cannot do with our money. Where a central bank digital currency is just that. It's a digital currency that you'll have to move around, and based on permission from the Fed or the third party they hire, like DMV is doing with Tezos, for your actual DMV titles. Now, what countries now are then saying, hey, okay, come here? Well, we can go back to El Salvador and their move back in, 2019 to adopt Bitcoin. And they didn't want to eliminate the dollar, but they were forced to keep the dollar. So in the article that you'll read on that, and I'll put the link down below, they actually were forced to keep the dollar. They don't see a future in the dollar. And Bukele, I hope he lives, the president of El Salvador, but there's a lot of U.S. pressure to cause division in El Salvador right now. I get Bukele's tweets, and he shows these things, and unfortunately, having lived down in these countries for 20 years of my life, I understand. I know. I'm as much as an American citizen as any American citizen is. I love our Constitution. That's why That's why I felt it was time to actually come and take a stand on defending that Constitution and free market economies. However, our politics has been corrupted for a long time. And I may get banned from this platform for saying that, but it has been. And we've seen that since the last election issues, etc., rolling out. And now this, more corruption. I don't want to go to corruption. I want to go to where we're going to find hope, right? We did a video on your community banks. Are they in trouble right now? Could they be in jeopardy right now? Could be. I don't trust banks anyway because I lost a lot of money in banks for freezing my accounts. Just had to fight with Wells Fargo, in fact, to get money unfrozen for no particular reason at all, just so they could keep it for 2 weeks and lend it out overnight and then, give me back my money later when they felt it was necessary for some nefarious reason. All right. So, El Salvador. El Salvador jumped on this in 2019 when they made Bitcoin a legal tender. Now, they have had a lot of popularity growing. There's a lot of controversy in growing in El Salvador, but Bukele has actually pushed El Salvador to be very blockchain technologically savvy. And he's actually creating bonds, they're volcano bonds, etc., where you can come in and buy bonds for El Salvadorian government from them. And that will then support, apparently, I haven't looked into all the bonds, but that's going to support the whole blockchain growth, as well as they're allowing you to come to El Salvador and mine, Bitcoin miners, on renewable energies created from the volcanoes. So El Salvador is one with open arms. Portugal, believe it or not, Portugal. Now, Europe, the European Union, England, they have adapted laws that were crypto-friendly. But all of a sudden now you're seeing, since the U.S. is cracking down the banks, now you're seeing something roll out this last week in England that they're saying, hey, wait a minute, we got to look at the banks and their involvement in cryptocurrencies. Now, they're trying to blame crypto as the downfall to these banks when that wasn't it at all. It was abuse of power by the FDIC, by the SEC, and others involved that created the whole idea that there was going to be this huge investigation, a possible collapse of Silvergate, for example, knowing what would take place. And Silvergate supported a platform that allowed clients to come out of crypto into your actual fiat currencies 24/7, right? We talked about that in the last video. So there was bank talk in England saying we're gonna reestablish this platform. Then boom, right after this, the British government comes out and says, hey, wait a minute, we're going to go back and we're going to review these banks to make sure our banking sector is secure, because now they're starting to feel that same ripple. But it's not because of crypto. It's because of inflation. Inflation has done this. The Fed has pushed these rates to a point where these long-term bonds that these banks bought into, government debt, are now not valuable, right? For the time being. They're basically, they're unwritten losses. But if there's a call on the bank, then they got to sell them, then those losses are real. Okay, they're realized. So they're unrealized losses now becoming realized. And that's basically what took place with the whole Silvergate issue going that direction, was it caused them to recall notes and so forth to cover the run on the bank that they had to sell at great losses. And therefore then their portfolio showed, hey, and the government swooped in and just took the banks. Not even trying to save them. Fired, as Joe Biden said, we're going to fire all those managers. We're going to rescue those banks, and we're going to make those banks safe for you. Yes, because our big banks are going to come in and do it, and they're the ones that are in line with us. So what countries then are going to offer us that refuge? Portugal. Believe it or not, Portugal. And there's been a lot of movement going to Portugal with blockchain. 2019, the Portuguese government introduced basically a law that would encourage the information exchange cooperation among participants in blockchain businesses. And that's important in blockchain, because blockchain needs to trade out ideas, right? And I think I just should do a video too on what kind of blockchain communities exist and what they stand for, which became a kind of a boring video, I think, but I'll try to make it exciting. So, since then, Bitcoiners and crypto enthusiasts in Portugal have flocked to the region, attracted by pro-crypto environment offering the chance to use BTC in real life. Even your merchants are coming around in Portugal and accepting Bitcoin. When I took a drive through Wyoming, it was interesting for me to be out in the middle of nowhere and go in and buy a hamburger, and it said right there, we accept Bitcoin. I'm like, dude, really? He says, yeah. So people are using this? He goes, yeah, it's picking up actually. I like it. Well, do you make any money? Well, I'm flipping a burger, you got the cost and so forth, but it's more so I want to support the network. because they believe in a free market economy. Love those people from Wyoming. Where else? Well, Singapore. Well, you know, it's kind of funny. Singapore comes off the cuff of, well, some experimental things that didn't work too well there. And you're seeing a blockchain adoption and crypto adoption in the country now with favorable laws. Now, these laws, unfortunately, these laws can change at any point. Like with Bukele in El Salvador, you know, with Bitcoin going down, everybody say, hey, El Salvador's losing money. My son one day said, Dad, here in the next 5 years or 10 years, I'll bet you El Salvador is the wealthiest nation in all of Latin America. And I got a feeling he just might be right. Because Bukele came out and said, hey, you know what? We're so confident Bitcoin is going to be the future that we're going to buy a Bitcoin a day even though the market's down. And if he does that, and he's able to stay in power, when Bitcoin does turn, it could turn in 2 years when it halves. When it does turn, you might see El Salvador, you heard it here first, become the wealthiest nation in Latin America because of this investment move. Now, they'll try to say it was because of other things, but mark our word on that one. Let's see what happens. Hey, you know where else wants to be the island of crypto? Malta. Yeah, you guys want to take a trip to Malta? Good excuse to have to go there and do business, huh? Malta. Along with Singapore, Malta started to promote blockchain adoption as early as 2017 when it gained a reputation as blockchain island. But listen to this. After drafting some regulations, the speed of the growth of blockchain technology, it kind of slowed down some. 2018, the Maltese Parliament passed 3 laws providing regulatory framework for blockchain and digital currencies to regulate ICOs. Okay, those are your initial offerings, right? Digital assets, digital currencies related to services. Concerning the taxation of crypto assets, look at this. Malta specified that electronic money and utility tokens, which a lot of these companies are coming out like SC Prime and so forth, those are utility tokens, right? So these utility tokens that come out and just kind of give us support for the network, necessarily, not necessarily it's something you can trade for them for money. In other words, I can't go back to the company and say, you owe me money for that token. It doesn't work that way. You're buying that token and you don't get money back from that company like a share would, okay? This is where blockchain is different. You buy that token, you have to actually go out on a market somewhere somebody is willing to buy that token from you and trade you in either a stable coin or a different type of token, right? That's completely different. That's not like a share. A share, the company has to buy it back from you if you sell it, or a broker buys it back from you, right? So it's very different in that creation. However, here's what the Tax Act of Malta says or reads. Malta specified that electronic money and utility tokens are not listed as capital gain assets in the Income Tax Act, excluding them from capital gains tax. However, now here's where you're going to have to be careful because the U.S. might recreate the definition. However, securities and virtual finance assets are considered capital assets and subject to taxation. Okay, so if I have a security like a share, right, I issue it and I buy it back, then that's taxable and then capital gains. Virtual finance is very broad, right? You can kind of isolate that to certain things right now, but that can open up as we're seeing governments do virtual finance. However, why would these countries then say, you know what, we're not going to worry about the taxation? And you got somebody who's not even on this, that's crypto friendly right now, and that's Nevis. And Nevis has been established for years as a safe haven to go to under Nevis law, etc. It's very difficult even for the U.S. to come in and try a case against you. Now, I'm not saying you should be doing anything nefarious. I'm talking about protecting your assets, right? So, Nevis is not even on this list, and yet we have talked directly with Nevis attorneys and banks that are very pro-crypto and would move money from a crypto business into a fiat currency. So there are more banks than these 5. Let's jump down to United Arab Emirates, right? The UAE, which would include Dubai and these United Arab countries, right? They have been moving things along with digital currencies for a while. What's happening is they're creating these zones, right? Like a crypto zone, like a tax-free zone, etc., where these companies can exist. Now you have to, to get into Dubai, for example, you have to pass this litmus test of having no criminal history, etc., etc., etc. But they do offer these residencies. Now you can pay for like $50,000 and $10,000 a year to sustain it, where you can actually offset your taxes then and being based out of Dubai. Now, living and working, remember, in the States, the United States of America, they don't see that. Wherever you're living is where they're going to try to tax you at. So you got to run into some issues there. However, legally you can have your crypto in those countries, right? Because no law is going to come down. Well, that would be very draconian, saying American citizens cannot have crypto. The guy has a tough time doing that. People will rise up and say, wait a minute, you're imposing on a free market economy. So these are the countries. You got United Arab Emirates, right, which the Arab countries are coming up in crypto, changing laws because there were some Islamic laws saying that crypto was a high-risk type of a gambling, and they don't believe in gambling. But now they're looking at it now as more a safe haven. You're seeing Bitcoin with this whole bank collapse going on and the insecurity in the financial system. You're seeing a move to silver, gold, and Bitcoin. Ethereum's not going up, but Bitcoin is. So Bitcoin now is starting to take on that characteristic of being the hedge that it was created to be. And that's because even our SEC has stated that Bitcoin is the only coin that they can see right now that will be outside of their reach because it's decentralized. DeFi, IoT, decentralized finance is what we represent and stand for. So please subscribe, hit the like button. We'll see you in our next video.